Greetings everyone, ImaginerJeremy here with the Planet Coaster Imagineers. First and foremost, I want to extend an apology to all my subscribers and people watching. I know there's been a bit of a delay from the first video. I actually just finished moving. We all know how hectic moving can be, so yeah, sorry about the delay, and hopefully we're going to start being able to churn these out a little bit quicker. My kind of common question I'm starting to see with a lot of people on through Facebook and Reddit is about my fencing that I actually use. I prefer to use a lot of custom fencing. Obviously I do use some in-game fencing as well, but I typically like to make my own. I think it has a more finished and polished look, more of a realistic look. That's kind of what I'm going for with my projects. So today what I'm going to do is walk you through kind of how to make two different styles of fencing. One of them is going to be a wooden fence, and the other one's going to be a fence that is composed mostly of my favorite thing in the whole world when it comes to Planet Coaster, beams. Hydro beams are just, again, absolutely incredible. I cannot thank him enough for creating those for the community to use. And then we're also going to walk you through, we're going to walk you through some of the other things that we can do with the wooden fence as well. And I'll show you and give you some ideas of what Theme Maker's Toolkit items I use from that as well. So first and foremost, what you're going to need, obviously, is a path. It doesn't have to be too long. I'm just going to kind of, like I said, walk you through some of this. We're not going to do anything fancy right now. One of the key things with Planet Coaster that a lot of new players may not understand, just because, you know, it's not something that it's not common knowledge, I guess you can say, but you really have to think outside of the box with Planet Coaster. It took me over a year to understand that I can use, you know, doors, I can use windows and walls and roof pieces even to use for flooring and for borders and for fencing and just a bunch of different things that this game has to offer that you can use in ways that you wouldn't have even imagined. So not to get too cliche or, you know, tie in too much here to the Planet Coaster Imaginers, but, you know, our tagline is imagine what it could be, and I think that that works great with this game just because literally the possibilities for this game are endless. I mean, the amount of stuff that I see every day through Facebook, through the Bro Nation server, on Discord, through Reddit, through Shy Guys World, all the blogs that I use, I just get inspired every day and get new ideas to see how people are actually using some of the really cool in-game items that you would never think to use for stuff. So with all that being said, let's go on and get started with building this fence. So first and foremost, we're going to actually go to the windows. Who would have thought? A window for a fence, right? One of the key things that I like to look for when it comes to building a wooden fence is going to be a wooden border that will go along this path. One of the best windows that I can use for that is going to be the Windows barred wooden one. Yes, wooden window barred window. This is actually really great for creating a border. So what we're going to do is rotate this 45 degrees, and then we're also going to turn it up 45 degrees. Excuse me, 90 degrees. Let me get my geometric degrees here, right? And then we're also going to sink this down into the ground, probably about halfway to the top of that frame, halfway to the top of the top frame. That makes sense. And we are going to drag it to almost to the edge of the border right there, leave just a little bit in there, but we're going to take it all the way to the edge of the border there. Something you may notice if you've already played this game before, or if you are just starting, the in-game path system works, you know, pretty decently well. There's definitely some flaws with it. I mean, you know, people who really play around with it, who study paths and look at this stuff in the game, they hate it. The path system is a little wonky. We're not going to lie about that. But the way the guests interact with the paths is definitely, to say it lightly a little, it needs some serious improvement. I've noticed that, especially on smaller paths, guests do kind of stumble over the divide here. So what, you know, if you have that border within your path like that, your guests are going to be walking right through this, and just it doesn't help if you're trying to take pictures or making a video. It doesn't look good. So what we're going to do, my preference, like I said, is just to scoot it all the way over to the edge. It does help just a tad bit. I mean, unfortunately, I do believe they're still going to probably walk over it, but you know, hey, what can you do? So once we get that place, we're going to click and drag. One of the key things that I like to do is actually like to try to make sure that if I'm going to be creating a border with the same type of unit, is just to make sure that there is not much of an overlap and that they are pretty much back to back. Too many times I've seen it to where people, you know, just half-heartedly just move stuff around. And I mean, and if you're going for that look, more power to you, but definitely make sure that you take the time, zoom in if you have to, and just make sure that you line that up just right. It does make a difference, especially for something like a fence where measurements are kind of a big thing. So just make sure that you're very careful with that. We'll do one more, and we already have our border. How's that? Pretty quick, right? Next, let me go on and say this, just because I know a lot of people are probably going to ask me this. You can use the in-game borders if you want to. I am personally not a big fan of it. I just think that they look, you know, fairly cheap. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it. I think that overall, if that's what the look you're going for, by all means do that. I personally prefer to use my own. I just don't think it's as clunky as the in-game one that they already have. Not to mention, it is pretty much in the path itself. So, just caution to all those who do want to use in-game path. Next thing we're going to do before we continue on with the actual fence is we're actually going to go to the Scenery tab, type in Archer, and we are going to plop down the Archer shooting animatronic character. We're going to put him down to the ground until pretty much that pad is pretty much not visible, and we'll just place him there. We are going to use this Archer, as probably many of you have seen before with a lot of the videos out there with creations and stuff. People use this Archer for a great unit of measurement in terms of scaling with the actual guest size. I know before I discovered what it was actually used for, I was typical to use the idle characters there, just because, you know, I use them for to have the appearance of like having extra attendance for rides and stuff like that. But then when I actually compare the two, it's almost comical to see how much larger the idle person is compared to the Archer, but the Archer is what is actually the same size as our guest. So yeah, don't use those. Use the Archer for scaling. So after we get the border put down, another really cool thing that is actually an in-game thing are the wooden pillars here. So we're going to just type in pillar, use the 2-meter pillar, and then what I typically like to do is try to get it as close to the center as I possibly can. If not, just use the advanced tool. Also make sure that you have a line to surface. That also helps when it comes to making sure that it's going to give you a perpendicular or at least a congruent snapping when it comes to where you're placing this. As you see, it either snap completely against the border. If I can get it to do it, is it going to do it? It's going to do it. Yeah, so you can go there, completely on top, other side. You know, there's a bunch of different things that you can do in terms of trying to get this thing to snap to where you want it to go, and that's always the easiest thing to do if you're trying to create perfect symmetrical sides with a fence. So we're going to place that down. What I like to do is leave just a little bit of a nudge on the edge of that border there, but still make sure that your pillar is directly in the center, which it looks like it is. And then to kind of pull your distance out a little bit and just drag that pillar down to the ground until you're right above that waistline on the Archer, which is about right there. Okay? And then we're also going to just advance move it, take it all the way to the end. Again, leave a very small little nudge out there, and then place that down. Okay? Pretty much when it comes to real life fencing in the United States, what we typically like to do is we just keep it at waist height, right above waist height I should say, just because it keeps kids from going in there. Adults should know better than jumping the fence, you know, but for the most part, everybody can understand the concept of the fence, so we'll just, you know, leave that be. One of the really cool things I think when it comes to making a wooden fence though is that it does give you a rustic look. You can use a wooden fence almost in any environment whatsoever, unless you're doing like a space theme. But I think the wooden fences and why I typically use them so much for my default path fence is just I like the way they look. It's very rustic, kind of gives that park a little bit more of a character feel to it, and it's just very good. So the next thing we're going to do, obviously, is we're going to create the, or not create, but we're going to place down the actual planks that are used in between the two posts. In order to do this well, little secret here, may not be a big secret, but just something I, again, had to learn over time, is if you click on the post and hit the X, which is how I activate the advanced move on my end, what we're going to do, on the workshop, there is a creator called Artificial Artist, and he creates really, really amazing things. One of my favorite things that he's made, though, is going to be these wooden planks. He has 2 meter, 4 meter, and 6 meter. What we're going to do is we're actually going to use the 2 meter plank, okay? Again, not touching anything on your keyboard, having that advanced move on from when you turned it on from the post earlier. What we're going to do is we're going to take this up, and then we're just going to rotate this 45 degrees down. Okay, excuse me, 90 degrees down. One of these days, I'm going to get my degrees right. And then we're going to just slide this down. Again, leave a little bit of a notch above, just for, you know, that little bit of extra realism in there. And then we're just going to place it. And then likewise, we're going to go down just a little bit more and place that one. Okay, and that's pretty much most of the fence. I mean, it's not it's not much to it. What we're going to like to do is multi-select. We're going to highlight both of those and then merge them into one scenery group. Hit the advanced control or the advanced move, and then we're just going to slide them on over until they are at least touching the other post there. Okay, and there you have it. I mean, that's how I make my wooden fences. I know. Bummer, right? Nothing really fancy about it. I mean, seriously, it's nothing too crazy. I do think it does add a different depth of realism when it comes to stuff like that. So just make sure that, you know, you take the time to make your stuff. I mean, that's pretty much most of Planet Coaster, is taking your time to actually build stuff. But yeah, that's a very, very simple wooden fence. If you want to get a little fancier with it, you can obviously just, you know, change the planks that you use in there. You could continue to use like wooden fence, like wooden post, I should say. I think the next size down with the wooden post, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, are going to be the wooden pillars instead of the haunted house pillars. I think nope, it's backwards. So the wooden pillars are actually a little bit larger than the haunted house pillar, so I would want to use that versus the haunted house pillar. And then what I'll do typically, if you, I mean, again, just for different variation here, you can actually just kind of copy and paste those over and do more like vertical fencing if you're looking for, if you're going for that look as well. So it just really depends on what you're looking for with fencing. I mean, there's so many different, like I said, possibilities when it comes to this game, and I think that that's something that a lot of us, it just takes, you know, getting to learn the game. I know a lot of times people, you know, don't think that some of the things that you can use in the game are or should be used for what you're going to use it for, but no, it actually works very well. And yeah, and there you go, another wooden fence. You can finish it off if you would like, taking one of those haunted house pillars, rotating it 90 degrees, and because they are the exact same size as the ones beneath it, what I typically like to do, just because the guests are going to be from this side, is kind of, you know, put a little indentation in there so there's some depth in there, and it also creates a little bit of texture in there. And then we can just slide that one over to the wooden pillar, the post I should say, and then just drag it to the next one. And that way you kind of have a little bit more depth in there. You know, just, it's like I said, it really depends on what you're wanting to do with your fencing. There's, like I said, the possibilities are endless. I can't say that enough. It's truly just endless with what you could do. But yeah, that's pretty much how you can do wooden fences. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. That's just a little tidbit, little small, you know, tips and tricks that I typically use for mine. Yep. So we're going to erase all that, and we're going to do the Q beams. Alright, so now we're going to do our Q fencing, or as I like to call it, the beam fencing. I have a couple of different beam sets that I like to use when it comes to my parks for day-to-day fencing with Q lines, or actually just generalized pathing. I use Idros beams or corkscrew, I think it's corkscrew workers, something like that. Yeah, we're going to go corkscrew workers. Nope, we're going to find out what his name is. Sorry. I feel bad getting his name wrong. Corkscrew loops. We're going to go with the corkscrew loops stuff as well. Corkscrew loop has a pretty great beam set. I do want to say I think he had his out first before Idro had his out. Idro, again, raised the bar and just made these incredible different measurements of beams, different sizes of beams. And I think it's incredible with just, the different types of ways that, he's added to this community as well. Both of them have done a great job with this. So let's get started. Same way we do with the wooden fence, we're going to create a border with this path. I typically, if I'm using a straight path, go with the 10 by 10 just to keep everything easy and don't have to click as much and have so many different pieces. And then also, again, we're going to leave just a little bit of an overhang on the path. Most of it's going to be off the path though. Advanced move, and make sure again you are filling in the gaps. I can't tell you gaps are this game's complete sin. Not really, but it pays off if you take the time. And we're going to just sink this into the ground just a tiny bit. Not much, just a tiny bit. Okay. Next time we're going to do the little trick I showed you with clicking on item and then hitting X, the advanced move key. We're going to also open up the scenery again. And with this time, instead of going to the 2 meter, we're going to go 1 meter. And we are also still going to use a 10 by 10. We're just going to rotate it 90 degrees up. Okay. And now what we're going to do here is sink that pretty far into the ground here, just to where a little bit is sticking out, okay? And there's going to be a reason why I wanted you to use the longer piece, and I'll explain. So once that is put in the ground, advanced move as well. The reason why I say always click on the item that you're going to want to make sure you're building or building onto is because it helps with keeping it directly centered. I mean, these items are, gonna pretty much go exactly where you tell them to go. So we're gonna go to scenery, and then this time we're gonna get the 5 by 5 0.5 meter beam with Hydro, and we're going to pull that on up. And what we're gonna do here is we are actually going to pull it up to where it's right at that waistline again. Okay. Usually takes about 3 pieces if you want to do the 0.5. If you're going to use the 1 meter, probably only would just need 2 pieces on that one. And then what this does is this is creating a little bit of our fence, okay? Or excuse me, the post for the fence, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to create this as merge this together as a scenery piece there. So it just makes it a little bit easier to actually, adjust the post as you need to, no matter where you're going at with your border. Even if you're doing curves, it really pays to ensure that you have a great, excuse me, you merge all of them together. Drew a blank there for a second, sorry. Now with the post and everything, I try to make mine as equal as possible. I should say balanced on both sides. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can go, just do 3 posts, you can do 4 posts, even 5 posts if you like to. What I typically like to do is I realize or look at real life queue lines that actually have this form of beaming, which are, typically found in most roller coasters that you have, most waiting lines, period. And what I'll do is I actually will look and say, okay, are they really, really elongated lines, or are they shorter, the 2 posts shorter or closer together? Most of the time they are going to be closer together. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try to do our absolute best to get those 2 right where they should be. What should be there? Okay. That's close to even. That's close. That's close enough as it is. Alright, and then one more time we're going to click on one of the posts, and then X, again, it's going to open up your advanced move. You're going to make sure that this beam that you're going to use is going to be an even smaller beam. So instead of using the 5 by 5, we're going to actually go down and use the 2 by 5. I do think that he has a 2 by 5 and a 1 meter, which, yep, he does. So what we're going to do, we're going to back that on up to the far post right there. And we are going to add those fencing in or the beams in. Can't even say fencing in. Yeah, fencing in. Now, one of the things that I wanted you to take note of is that on this queue, most queue lines don't have too much of a top when it comes to the post. So you want to try to get as close as you can get to the top without actually, without actually cutting off the top. I think to there would be okay. Pretty decent, yeah. And then you just make sure that all these pieces are connected. Okay. And that way, you have a little bit more of a finished look when it comes to placing all of your placing all of your, my brain is scattered right now, you guys. I'm so sorry, I'm still trying to move. So anyways, we're gonna highlight all those, merge them together, and we're just going to bring those on down. Now, the thing with queue fencing is that queue fencing has so many different variations of how it can look. If you really want to get fancy with it, you can do so many different designs when it comes to the beams. My typical go-to would be usually 2 on top and then 2 right there on the bottom. That is a pretty standardized, fencing queue, and it works great for like a Space Mountain theme. If you're looking at just a generic type of path, or a fence, I should say, it's endless. The possibilities are truly endless with this game of what you can do. You can also, if you're really wanting to, use all 5 and just fill it up. Again, it really is almost endless when it comes to that. I know it's pretty simplistic stuff, making a fence, and a lot of the people who, some of the people subscribed definitely know how to make these fences, but for a lot of the newer players, I know sometimes looking at some of the in-game fencing is, you want to look at it, you want to plop it down and say, I'm done with the fence, but, it really does help to kind of, play around with your fencing a little bit more, just because I think that you really do get a sense of, first of all, not only just accomplishment, but you get a little bit of a sense of, oh, this looks a little bit different. This looks a little bit, better than what the in-game fences could have. Obviously, it's going to go with your theme. If you want to use these big, clunky, thick fences that are just ugly as heck, by all means, I'm not going to judge you for it. But I just typically like to keep my stuff as simple as possible, and just to have, just to have more fully customizable ability in the park, I typically use beams or just create my own wooden fences there. Yeah, let me know what you would like to see for the next tips and tricks video from any of the videos that I post. Discovery Gardens definitely has some really cool things that I'm going to go over, I think, in the next video, more so with interior stuff. That's going to be a little bit of a longer video, so it might be broken down into a few parts. And then also, I'm going to start to show people a little bit more of custom supports with roller coasters. I just finished a fully custom supported Aero roller coaster, like classic Aero roller coaster with those grid supports, so that's going to be that was a little complicated to do, but I've had a lot of people asking me just kind of how I was able to get that look and accomplish that. So definitely going to be something I really think we all should start to look at doing more, is having more of your stamp on it. Like, customize whatever you make, and wherever you can customize it, definitely do so. It definitely pays off, and I think it helps look more real in game. So that's going to be all for this video. Try to keep it short, sweet, and simple. But yeah, like I said, let me know below in the comments section what you all would like to see or want me to go over in the next videos. If you would, just like or subscribe to my channel. And then I'm also going to be posting a few more videos about Discovery Gardens as well. 2 completely different, I guess you can say, series there, but Discovery Gardens is kind of just a behind the scenes look at the park as it progresses, and then you also have the Imagineer tips and tricks. And then also, I kind of want to extend a special congratulations to Aaron, Chris, aka Velho, and Mango, Kevin, for being the awesome people that they are. They're also new Imagineers as well. They've done a great job at showing off what they can really do, and they're extremely talented individuals. They inspire me every day I see their work, and it's just really refreshing to get kind of a different input on some things as well. So congratulations to all of them, and we're still looking for different Imagineers as well. So if you are interested, please visit our website at www.imagineplanetcoaster.com, or you can check out our Facebook page at Planet Coaster Imagineers. We post pretty frequently on Reddit, as well as the Facebook group Planet Coaster Nation. There's about 5,200 people in that group, and so there's a massive amount of resources and just a great sense of community there. Everyone builds each other up, supports each other, gives great feedback, constructive criticism if you need it or if you ask for it, and it's a really great group to be involved with. So definitely check us out on there, and that'll be it for this video.